But Matt, welcome up on screen again. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Anders. Very well, thank you.
Good, good. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And it's not a conversation we would have
No
thought we would be
pressure.
having, yeah, 12 months ago. And I think everyone was sort of told 12 months ago, 9 months ago, when the pandemic sort of came about, to keep yourselves out there, keep yourself visible. Has that sort of changed? How should people be sort of planning to market themselves out of the pandemic?
I think the key is you've got to have a plan. And, you know, a year, 18 months ago, everyone was putting 12-month plans together. And if you can put a 12-month plan together right now, you should probably do something else rather than marketing. So, 3-month plan. So a rolling 3-month plan that you put some core objectives and targets in place that you genuinely think are achievable. So you know what success looks like. So when you actually get to where you want to go, you know if you've got there or not. Marketing your business is no different to weight loss. It's exactly the same process. And if you're working with an agency, it's like hiring a personal trainer. Not everything in the gym is going to work. You can't cheat. You've still got to get out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's just as much as it is on you as it is on your agency, for example, if you are working with one. But if you're not, it's quite easy to put a one-page plan together, who you want to target, what you want to say to them, and what you want to get from it, and then how are you going to get in front of them. If you haven't got a plan, then you're just going to waste time, money, and effort that you'll never be able to get back again. And if your website's poor and your brand's a bit weak and the website looks like it was done by Linda and Accounts back in 2004, then you need to put your money there first before you spend good money to take all that traffic to something that doesn't really represent you as a business. So sort your brand and website out first, and then put a little mini plan together, and then follow it. And don't procrastinate, be consistent, and make marketing a priority in the business. That would
Absolutely,
be
I
the key.
completely agree. I really like the analogy of the gym, and also I suppose your website is just effectively your shop front now, isn't it? Really. So yeah, really, really important. So
And also the
what?
way Google reads your website, that's changing and evolving as well. And you need to make sure that you're up to speed and up to scratch with that. Otherwise, the quality of traffic that comes to your website won't be what you're looking for.
Absolutely. So what should companies be doing to market themselves? Really, where should they be doing that?
I think ultimately it depends on their budget. When you look at when you look at marketing, it's just like this big arsenal from TV and Premiership sponsorship all the way to putting some flyers through somebody's letterbox, and then everything else in between. If you are going to market yourself from a digital perspective, make sure you can track the hell out of everything you're doing. I often feel like marketing is like going to the casino. It's got that real, literally 1 minute you play and you win, the next minute you play the same game and you're down twice what you've lost. So you know, that's really key that you enter marketing with that in mind. So like I'll always say to someone, never spend your life savings on marketing, never spend more than you can afford to lose, and don't expect to win every time. And if you go in with that mindset, you'll actually do really, really well. I think you've got to know when you're flogging a dead horse as well. That's pretty important. Some people, go for too long and say it doesn't work, and then other people expect results overnight. And it's like going to the gym once and expecting, to come
Mm,
out with a beach perfect body. It doesn't happen that way. It's consistency and time and effort and money and energy. And when I look at a marketing for a business, you need to have a really balanced marketing mix. And the best way to look at your marketing mix is like a big cake, and each slice of that cake is a different type of activity. And in an ideal world, half of the cake would be digital and half of the cake would be in person, depending on what industry and sector you're in. And the more balanced you can get it, you can then start analysing and seeing what's working, what's not working. And when you start to see that, you can put more eggs in the baskets that are working.
mm. That's a really good point. I really like the cake analogy again. So I suppose I think a lot of people will be told, you need to keep marketing, but where can they find out where is best for them? I think people might be posting on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and it could just be a waste of time a lot of the time. So you mentioned there
Yeah.
about sort of reaching your target audience. So I suppose two-part question. First of all, where can they find that information out, and then where should they do so?
So it depends what they're going to do for marketing. So if you look at social media as an example, um, within a 30-second Google search, you'll know what social media platforms are relevant to what industries and what sectors. And there are so many people that are just singing in an empty room, and they're doing marketing for the sake of marketing, but nobody's seeing or hearing it. So it's like there's no point in it. And the amount of brands I see think they should be marketing on Twitter when Twitter is just a glorified pub fight, you know, that's not where you go to sell a product necessarily. So I think having that educational process in terms of knowing where to position your product, you know, if you sell, you know, £1 million sports cars, you don't open your dealership on a council estate because the plot of land was cheap. That's not where you position your brand. So, you know, you need to know your product for starters, and you need to know your customers. And once you know your products and customers, it's quite easy to then, you know, get your message in front of them. And again, that comes into the planning.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people find out that information? I know maybe quite a few people have used analytics before, but I know you mentioned there about Google searching. But is there any other tips you can give around sort of finding out exactly where your target audience are?
So here's the thing. So for instance, if you have got a pre-existing, you know, social media following, there are tools that you can use that analyze that data, and they will tell you, you know, how old they are, where they're from, what age they are, what sex they are, you know, and you can start to analyze and mine that information. There are tools with Google where you can look at keyword searches and volume of traffic and things like that. And then on the back end of your website, you should be able to see your analytics, again, where they're coming from, where they're leaving, how they're finding you, how long they're staying there. All of those things contribute into the success factor of converting that lead into an inquiry and bring it into your pipeline. I think the things with sales and marketing is they sit hand in hand, but they're completely different. And so many people think they're the same thing. For me, marketing is the person that makes the bullets, and sales is the person that fires the gun. But the person who makes the bullets needs to know how the gun works. And that's exactly how sales and marketing should work from that perspective.
I really like that. This leads me really nice into the next question. It's just come in from Claudia in the Q&A area. She said, should people play it safe with marketing messages or be brave with content? I know you at Creative Pod are quite brave with it, and I suppose it will then depend back on your audience. But yeah, should people be brave or yeah?
Oh, you know what? It depends. It completely depends. So we're a creative agency, and 8 meters printed on our wall, it says "No dickheads," and that is our company policy.
Everyone must have seen that.
Dickheads. Everyone, you know. But if we were funeral directors and you were turning up to talk about Granny's funeral and you saw that on the wall,
yeah,
we might not be the first port of call for us to look after the last piece of Granny's life, if that makes sense. So, but it works for a marketing agency.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, when you're a service-based business, which a lot of people in the room are, people aren't buying what you do for a living. They're buying you. They're buying their chemistry, the energy, the relationship with you. And if that isn't represented in your brand, then you're making a mistake, because that's what people are buying. So you need to be aware of that ultimately. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being edgy and pushing things, but there are sometimes that you see people drop a bollock and make a massive mistake. Look at Burger King on International Women's Day. I don't know if anybody saw that, but they basically put all of their social media channels basically started International Women's Day with "Women belong in the kitchen." And then they had built up a campaign around there aren't enough women in professional catering, only 20% of women work in, professional kitchen. But it completely died, and it was absolutely awful and was a real faux pas.
Absolutely tone deaf, I think, with that.
Yeah.
Leads me nicely into the next question, actually, Matt. So what's the sort of biggest mistake you found when people are marketing? I suppose this could be before and after a pandemic, because I think now people might have to be quite mindful with what they're saying and what they're over promising potentially. So what are the sort of biggest mistakes you're seeing?
I think a lot of people don't actually understand what marketing is. They think it's this kind of magic wand that you wave, that you wake up one morning and you have lots of customers. And I think the other thing people make is not spending enough money. I get people come to me and they say, I've got £500 to spend on my Google AdWords, or I've got £1,000. What can I do to get a return on investment? And literally 9 times out of 10, I say, keep the money. because it's just not enough to oil the cogs. It's like getting into a taxi with a tenner and telling the driver to go to Manchester, and when you're kicked out halfway down the road, you can't understand why you're pissed off. So you've got to have enough budget for the journey. And then a lot of people flog the dead horse. They spend so much money doing what they think they should be doing, and it doesn't work. Or you get the person that says, we've got a young person in the office and we'll get them to look after our social media. And again, that's just crazy. I know all the words to man in the mirror, but you don't see me selling out the O2. Just because a young person knows what buttons to push doesn't mean they know anything else about strategy, commercials, clients, or anything else in between from that perspective. So there are some real false economies that people set themselves up for, and they don't realise they've done it until they've spent $5,000, $10,000, and they've had a very, very expensive lesson.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. I'd like to see you sell out the O2 though, Matt, I've got to say.
Mate, could you imagine?
We've had another question coming from Katie Lowe. Really good question, actually.
Sure.
So she's asked for tips on making traditionally boring industries such as law, accountancy, exciting from a marketing perspective. She said, I'm a lawyer, and I'm certainly not boring.
So normally I would say ban the lawyers and the accountants from the marketing meetings. That's usually a really good starting point. And the big mistake I always see from professional services firms is that their content is written by lawyers, and it shouldn't be. The content needs to be written by people who buy their services. And I think that's really, really important that those professional services understand, they understand that. I think the other thing with, certainly if you look at lawyers and accountants, they're quite traditional, middle-aged white men, fairly safe, respected type industries. But the world is changing, their customers changing, their customers becoming a bit younger. And, if they want to differentiate themselves and stand out from the crowd, I always feel that having a community focus is really important. Having a CSR focus is really important. Teaming up with the local charities and doing fun days and family fun days and raising money and doing loads of good in their community, it makes them more approachable as well. Plus, there's only so much PR you can get for doing someone's year end, isn't there? So, and I think the other thing is a lot of lawyers have been so reliant, and accountants so reliant on how their industry has been. It's now digitizing and it's now evolving, and the game's changing. And those 3-inch high little gold letters etched onto the window actually don't mean anything anymore. There's a whole bigger picture out there. And the lawyers and professional services that digitize themselves will be the ones that will still be around in 5-10 years' time.
Absolutely. I think some really good tips in there for you, Katie. Another question's come in from the crowd. So it's about what's your tips for video content? And I think one thing I'll add on to that is it important to get professionally video created content done, or can you do it yourself?
That's a good question. Video is the holy grail. Video is the holy grail because it kills so many birds with one stone. It's really good for your SEO, really good for your content. It's really good for engagement and views and everything else like that. It's bloody expensive. And then the amount of people that will go and drop $2,000 on a video and then don't know what to do with it apart from show their mates in the pub. So you've got to know what to do with that asset once you've had it filmed. For me, when you're creating video content, the viewer has to be able to understand the video without any audio. They have to be able to watch the whole video without any audio, so subtitles are a must. Yep. And it should still leave a smile in the mind if it's muted. That is such a great thing to have. So video is perfect. Here's the thing: whether you do it yourself or you get somebody else to do it, it depends on the content. If you're doing something that's like super, super slick, it needs to have a level of professionalism in it. But having that kind of sort of Blair Witch approach, go and spend £100 on Amazon on a gimbal. It's this little thing you clip your phone into, and you get a nice steady pan and zooms. Honestly, the best £100 you've spent. And with video, again, you've got to be consistent. Doing one video won't work. People won't even remember you've done a video. Constant drip feeding content out. Top tips, 60-second tips. Constantly pushing content, but video is holy grail, and the minute you start using it and engaging with it, you'll start to see it have massive positive effects.
And I suppose if you do allocate some budget to then spend on a video, you can then repurpose that video at different sort of forms in social media as well. One follow-up question, I suppose.
Recycle it.
Yeah, one follow-up question I had, I suppose, is how long should video content be on social media? You mentioned 60 seconds there. Is that sort of the ideal amount of time?
I think you want to keep someone captivated. No more than 90 seconds. And if it is, then maybe look at a series of videos that support that one topic or content matter.
Okay, cool, great, perfect. That's a question that also came in from the Q&A area, so perfect. We answered that. One more question just from me. For someone that's sort of going into maybe allocating some budget into their marketing for this year or for Q2, what was the one tip you'd give for strategy and implementation? I know you mentioned plan at the start, so maybe it's sort of that.
I wouldn't put it all on digital. That's a real false economy, but I would do digital. And I would treat that budget a bit like a hedge fund manager. I'd spread it over several different things. I'd do them consistently for, say, 4 months. That gives you a month's worth of planning and a whole quarter's worth of tinkering. And then have a look at what the results come out of it. If it's the first time you've ever dipped your toe into that water, then I think it would be sensible to start that process expecting to get absolutely nothing from it at the end of it, apart from the bill that you've spent, and use it as a process to just learn. And if you do get anything from it, then you've come out, very, 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 very well indeed. But you've got to start somewhere. You've got to, and you've got to experiment and take that content and data and information, and you can't procrastinate and sit on the fence, because it's just as bad. I
suppose the moral there is it's a bit of a slow burner, so don't expect anything too fast.
Yeah, and also don't ever sit there when you're creating social media content or when you're working with an agency and say to them, "Oh, we want you to come up with something that will go viral." That's like sitting in front of a songwriter and saying, I need 5 number ones, please." Oh, it doesn't work that way. No. Crikey. Look at what Marmite have done, at the moment.
Yeah, no. One thing I'll also add is that just not to get disheartened, I suppose. If you are creating content, especially social content, and it's going out, you're not getting much engagement, like you say, be consistent and don't get disheartened if you aren't getting anything at the start, because there could be that one viral tweet that then blows up. Matt, that's all we've got time for, I'm afraid, but I'm sure you'll be around the room if anyone has any more questions for you. But
sure, no problem at all.
Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll be doing a sort of post-event LinkedIn post and email later this afternoon. So yeah, thank you very much, Matt, for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Matt. Thank you.